I was never really a runner. The way I see running is a gift, especially when you have stage 4 cancer. I'm Anne. I'm running the Boston Marathon, presented by Bank of America. I run for Dana-Farber Cancer Institute to give people like me a chance to thrive in life, even with cancer.
Join Bank of America in helping Anne's cause. Give if you can at BofA.com/supportAnne. What would you like the power to do? References to charitable organizations is not an endorsement by Bank of America Corporation. Copyright 2025.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hear that? It's SpringFest savings calling your name. Only at Lowe's. Right now, get a free Select Ego 56-volt battery when you buy a Select Ego trimmer, blower, or mower. Plus, get your choice of any 2 bags of Miracle-Gro organic soil mix for only $16. Shop these can't-miss deals in-store or online today. Lowe's. We help. You save. Valid through 4/2. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Excludes Hawaii.
Business taxes. Was stressing about all the time and all the money you spent on your taxes.
This is my bill?
Now Business Taxes is a TurboTax small business expert who does your taxes for you and offers year-round advice at no additional cost, so you can keep more money in your business. Now this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on turbotax.com/business. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service.
Back with another episode. It's been way too long, but this is the Blue Turf. This is that Bell from the Casey Soccer Journal. With me, Eric Bergrud, who, man, he is everywhere. I even saw him hobnobbing with some guy named Ed Hale the other day. How you doing, Eric?
Hey, I'm doing great. You saw me? Was I on TV or something, or you just heard I was with Ed Hale?
Actually, I was told somebody else saw you, but on the broadcast, I did not.
Hey, that's
actually
good. Yeah, I was there. I've been bi-coastal. I was week before in Tacoma announcing a game, and at Baltimore as a fan, and I've seen a lot of Comets soccer lately.
That's I would say that's good, but you haven't seen a lot of wins lately, have you?
No, the one game I didn't go to was up in Utica, where they came back and won in overtime. But yeah, last year was a tale of 3/3. The first third was great, the second third not so good, and the third third was great. And unfortunately for Comets fans, this year the last third wasn't so good. And so what started off as potentially a first place finish, they wound up ending fourth and almost mirrored their performance from last year. They were 1 point better in the standings than they were in the 23-24 season. So that's
pretty much a wash there. I would say that I mean through 2/3 of the season, I would have said they were a much better team than last year, and I still think that they are a better team. It's just that now they've had so many injuries and they're on their bad streak. What do you think, Eric?
I mean, part of it, the last 2 weekends, they engaged in some load management, meaning that some players were rested certain games, some players were at home. Like if you take a look at the roster that played at Utica versus the roster that played in Baltimore, there was on Sunday there was no Ramon Palmer, there was no Lucas Souza, there was no Lucia Tetsane. They made some changes to try to give some guys a break. Philip Ejimadu did not play the last couple weekends, and we'll see about his status heading into San Diego. But if they can bring what's left of the best 16 to San Diego, they have a chance to win both games. Absolutely. It's just you would prefer them to be coming into the playoffs with momentum that was there last year that's not currently there.
Yeah, after the last game, I asked coach, how much of this was guys who were too injured to play, or that you're resting them and trying to get them healthy. And he goes, it's all about the rest, getting them healthy. So it wasn't that they couldn't have played; they could have, or at least a fair number of those guys who did not make the trip could have played. But it was, like you said, load management, getting them rest, getting them healthy, about the postseason.
Well, and just a couple things from a kind of 10,000-foot level on strategy here. Once it was clear they weren't going to get a 1 or 2 seed, I think it changed the calculus in terms of how they approached the last part of the season. I think if they had either gotten a result way back when in Chihuahua or had beaten San Diego at home a little bit later, that might have affected the calculus moving forward, because then it was like, we're not going to play on Friday night in San Diego. We know we're going to get a Saturday night game. Maybe it's more important to have the best team possible moving in. And then I had some talks in Baltimore with Blast personnel on Sunday, right before the game. Is it better to be a 3 or a 4 seed? Because let's just assume you win your first game bad.
Yeah.
The 3 seed would play San Diego, the home team, right, on Sunday. The 4 seed would play Chihuahua, and you think Chihuahua, 2-time champions, but Chihuahua hasn't been nearly as consistent on, let's call it, full fields,
right,
away from Corner Sport Arena. And so, I mean, for me, I was like, hey, if the Comets lose and get the 4 seed, I can live with that.
Yeah, I mean, they still have to beat the Wave.
They do.
They're favorite team in the world. But if they get past them, and then they would presumably face Chihuahua. But again, you never know. The ambush might get by them. It would be kind of interesting to have the Comets face the Wave and the ambush in the postseason.
Well, it wouldn't work that way, and I'll tell you why, Thad, because they reseed the teams after the quarters, and so most likely then it would be San Diego versus St. Louis in the semis, but that would be wild.
Yeah, no, you're right. Sorry, I was forgetting about that part. It would have been kind of fun. All right, so who in this last couple of weeks here, who has stood out as, maybe stepping up to be, leading the team a little bit?
So let me throw you 2 or 3 names. I think Nicolau Neto has looked great, and anybody who listens to this podcast knows I have no qualms with him being in goal. And so it would not shock me to see him Saturday night starting. Again, not knowing Philip Ejimato's status, but Neto wowed people in Baltimore. I mean, when you see him in person, it's very different than seeing him on your screen, and he was impressive. There's been a goal or two a game that he would like to have back, but overall, he's kept them in games down the stretch. Joe Wainwright has impressed me too. So somebody who was basically just doing the hard work at the world famous Kansas City Soccer Dome until he got the call up, and 3 goals here in the last 4 games.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be interesting to see if he makes that playoff roster. But he's definitely impressed me. And then the other one, and I will go on the record here on this broadcast, my vote, and I did submit my ballot, that for Players of the Year, Chad Vandergrift for Defender of the Year. He has been the answer the Comets have needed on the back line, and he's been sensational. And some of the blocks he's made, I know that some fans, players think that the blocks stat is overrated, but you watch him on the field, and he keeps the Comets in games.
People think the block stat is overrated? Wow.
Oh, sure. Ask San Diego fans, because San Diego doesn't block that many shots. They're like, but our defenders are great one-on-one markers. And so there's been this whole back and forth over the last couple of years about how do you vote for Defender of the Year. But in my mind, there is no doubt that Chad Vandergrift is Defender of the Year. And so I've been campaigning for him on broadcast, and I voted for him today.
Yeah, I think if I had a vote, I would definitely have him in the top couple. I would have to really seriously think about who else I would even have in there. I just try not to like be total homer. Go, oh yeah, I'll obviously vote for him. He's been lights out all year, man. It's amazing.
Sure. Yeah, so those would be my three. Again, I don't know if Wainwright gets the call up, but he's impressed me, and I think Neto has the experience and mentality you would want in the playoffs, particularly if you're staring down Milwaukee on Saturday night. But we'll see who Coach Stokic calls in on that starting lineup.
I just want to throw in there too, Mijatovic,
Yep.
Stefan, whatever,
Yep.
however we want to say his damn name.
Yep.
And I'll say it however he wants to. He's pretty big.
Yep.
It took him a few games to kind of settle in with the Comets, but he's been really good this last couple of weeks.
He scored a lot of goals. I think he gives you the versatility where you can play him on the back line or you can play him at target. They would prefer to play him on the back line. I think he's more comfortable back there.
Yeah.
But he scored goals from both positions. And so I've told Nick Vassos on air multiple times, for the Comets to win the championship, they need to get goals from the yellow line, and Mijatovic absolutely can hit bangers from back there. What's interesting about watching a game in Baltimore, I'd never seen a game in Baltimore, and I get what fans say about it being a rinky-dink field and whatever, but once the game starts, you get acclimated to that. Teams, the Comets definitely drop back really, really deep to defend Baltimore in a field like that. So having a defender on the outside who can shoot from the outside makes all the difference. And I think you never know how a goal's going to go in. So having somebody who can shoot from outside, it doesn't have to be a pure shot that gets all net. There are all sorts of players that can bounce off of all sorts of things that can happen. And so he's been a really solid addition to the team.
Yeah, he's kind of gotten in his groove now in the last few games. In the 8 games he's been with the Comets, it's 3 goals and 6 assists, but I think most of that came in the last 4.
Yep.
Because I don't want to dig too far deep into this while we're talking. But yeah, he's been good. So I know people have complained about the playoff format, the location, and all that type of stuff. Ed Hale mentioned it on one of their broadcasts. Just once again, the owners voted for it. There was a logic to it. The dates are all good. You don't have to fight for dates. You have a place that you can commit to having all types of multiple games in a day. It still makes sense. I mean, are you still in agreement that it makes sense?
Oh, I'm in agreement that still makes sense. I will say I didn't talk specifically with Ed Hale because I was watching the game with him Sunday. I didn't talk with him specifically about the playoffs. But based on his business model at home, I can see why he thinks that he would have been, or the Blast would have been better served being at home based on the revenue that they collect, or their share of the revenue they collect at the arena there. So I understand that. But for most teams, particularly if you're thinking you're the St. Louis Ambush and how much money you would have had to spend to get down to Chihuahua,
Yeah.
this is more economical for a lot of teams to do it this way. And that was one of the drivers for this decision. What I've been told, Pat, is this is not set in stone as a permanent, we're going to do this every year. I think they're going to see how this works. If they try it again, and they might, I wouldn't expect that it would be in San Diego the following year. I think they'd want to shop it around.
Yeah, and if Kansas City can claim two weekend dates in the right time period, then maybe they get it, or somewhere else.
Maybe.
Again, not saying that Kansas City is the only place that could get it. Milwaukee or other places that have good arenas.
Well, I would say what's going to be more important, and we can talk a little bit about the Comets broadcast on Saturday night, is an arena that has a production setup that would fit nicely with CBS Sports Golazo, and not every arena does. So I think that will be a determining factor. How many camera angles do you have? Is your feed consistent? What's your production team in house? What broadcaster do you have, et cetera? And not every arena can deliver that. And so I wouldn't just assume that 12 teams or how many teams will be in the league next year will all have equal footing access if they decide to bid it out.
Yeah, no, not every team will for sure. I mean, we couldn't even get good angles on a potential handball a couple games ago, so you need more camera angles. You need the better setup. Not every arena has that, but the ones who do should be interested in saying, "Hey, we'll host this. Let's claim a couple dates, see if we can set them aside." Because the good thing about San Diego is again they control their own destiny. So
Well, and the arena has great sight lines, and I think it will look attractive. My understanding, and the broadcast schedule hasn't been published, but my understanding, Thad, is the early games will be on YouTube TV in the doubleheaders, and then the late games will be on CBS Sports Golazo. So you might wonder why it would make sense on Friday why San Diego would get the evening game. They'll get a better crowd, et cetera, but that would be the game that would be on Golazo. You might think that the 3 seed would get the evening game on Saturday. That would be Baltimore against UCFC, but it's going to be Kansas City and Milwaukee. And I think that's because my broadcast partner is going to be on there. That'll be the Golazo game. You'll have Nick Vassos calling the game with a special guest color analyst, which hasn't been announced, but I think I could leak it here if you're wanting.
leak, man, come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's not published anywhere official, but my understanding is Christian Philly Filament is going to be color analyst on Saturday night. So you'll have 2 first team MAS broadcasters partner together on Saturday, and I think that'll play well for Golazo.
Yeah. No, I like Philly. He's a good guy.
Yep.
Yeah, I will be watching as much of those games as I possibly can that night.
Yeah, and then Sunday, we'll see what we'll see. But the challenge for the Comets is most likely if they win Saturday in the late game, they would get the early game Sunday. So no long turnaround. And so again, thoughtfulness about who's healthy, who's not. I think there's all sorts of calculus here in terms of have they rested the right guys for the right amount of the time heading into that San Diego trip. Their training scheduled this week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practices at the world famous Kansas City Soccer Dome, then fly out Thursday to San Diego. They'll get a chance to watch the games on Friday. Would assume they'll have some sort of kick around, and then game time Saturday.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to stop by the Dome in the morning. We're recording this Tuesday evening. You cut my Taco Tuesday night a little short, Eric.
Hey, you wanted me on.
I did.
It's sacrifices you make, that.
It is. That's it was really good chicken though. The I guess how if you were coach, how do you approach that game Saturday night against the Wave? Do you just, I mean, do you absolutely go play Comet style? Do you try to hold back a little bit, rest, do you try to make it a close game? What do you do?
First of all, it's Milwaukee. Period, right? It's
Yeah.
Milwaukee. I don't think there's any coasting through. It's going to be a battle. They're going to want to bring it. And I think that both teams aren't going to look past that game because they know it's going to be a battle. And if you lose that one, none of this matters. So I think you bring your full A team. I think you play 60 minutes out there. We know that Milwaukee has found a way, even when their backs against the wall, they somehow find a way to crawl back into games. And so I think you can't just cruise against them because even when you think you're killing them, they're still in games. And so I would expect that they're going to treat this the way they should. It's a playoff game, and it's a winner go on, loser go home situation, and hope for the best going into Sunday. I think that's the plan.
All right, so I know we only have a certain amount of time tonight, but we've kind of we missed a couple of attempts to record pods because of just life in general, too many things going on. But the season's not over, but the regular season's over. And we talked about who has been some of the better players in the last couple weeks. But just overall, has there been any big surprises this year?
Yeah,
Good
I
or
think
bad?
let's start with good. I think that it at the beginning of the season, and we're talking preseason, I had no inkling that Philip Ejimadu would be the starter for the Comets going
Yeah.
in, just based on how Neto played last year. And Ejimadu earned his minutes, and he earned all the acclaim that he got. And I think he's getting serious contention for first team, second team all league, which great for him. So definitely positive surprise. I think that Rion Marquez on the field was MVP of the team, and unfortunately he got hurt there in the last stretch, or he legitimately could have been MVP of the league. I think he's missed too many games where it'll be Jorge Rios from Chihuahua who's gonna win the MVP. But for a while, that was Rion's trophy, and he had that great a year.
Do you say he's MVP of the team as it is, despite having missed all those games?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, no qualms with that. I think Chad Vandergriff, we know he was good, but I think he stepped up even more after Berto Palmer returned back to Empire.
Yep.
And just had a stellar year defensively. And then, I mean, there were so many injuries that there were players who you saw flashes and then they got hurt. And I would put several people in that category. Mikey Lennis was in and out. Henry Ramirez was in and out. Lucas Souza in and out. And so there were so many players that you didn't get to see them for 24 games. So it's really hard to give them individual report cards.
Yeah, and not a negative on the players themselves as much as just not having achieved what I thought they would coming into the season. But both Lennis and Acosta, I thought were going to be.
Yep,
both.
Acosta's a great one. He started off in the fastest way. I think his first couple games is what launched him to All-Star selection.
Yep.
And then it slowed down, and then he got hurt. And it's definitely not the year he would have liked. On the positive side, somebody who was consistent all year was Guerrero Pino.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether he'll get the first team or second team all league defensively. Don't know. But he had a solid year as a difficult defender to play against.
Yeah, he's been really solid all year. I don't know that I would put him into the top tier, but he has been solid and leader and just really contributed. So
I think Zach Raggett expected more goals, so the goal production dropped from last year, but I think teams targeted him more defensively and created problems for him where they're like, okay, he's not going to score against us. But he found ways throughout the year to get himself open and or to increase his assist total. And the fact that with Nacho missing a few games down the stretch, Raggett wound up becoming captain.
Yeah.
In a couple games, and it's apparent if you watch him. And I saw him. He had the captain's armband in Tacoma. I was there. He had the captain's armband in Baltimore, and I was there. He is a captain on the field, whether he wears the armband or not.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, his scoring production has went down. Again, I think just lots of injuries. He's never been able to quite get healthy. If we could get him and Rion healthy for a whole season, man, that would be unbelievable. But he has been that leader. Just watching, because sometimes I'm down shooting or I'm on the bench or behind the net or whatever. Just listening and hearing and seeing what he does and how he does it. He's definitively a captain. If not, he's not wearing the armband, he's still one of the captains.
Yeah, and in that last home game against Tacoma, they experimented with having Reggett, Marquez, and Mijatovic on the field at the same time. And it'll be interesting to see if they try that against Milwaukee, because what's been a challenge for Reggett is teams will either man mark him or double him. And if you put him and Marquez out on the same line, that creates one set of challenges. Throw Mijatovic in too, and then what do you do defensively? And so it'll be interesting to see if that surfaces again.
Yeah, the only question is then who's on the other line and who's healthy enough to be on the other line to carry that line.
Yeah, they didn't do that at every line. This is just sort of like okay, we're going to throw a
Yeah.
wrinkle out at you, and we'll see how do you adapt and adjust to that.
No, I do
The
remember
the
seeing
other
that.
problem, I guess, not necessarily a player, but a situation squad. I think that penalty kill was solid most of the year. I think the power play slash set piece team did not deliver the way you would have expected. And so it'll be interesting to see what personnel they bring out Saturday night. Will it be Nacho on the ball? Will it be Mijatovic on the ball? Will Lucas Souza be in there or not? What's Acosta's status? There are a bunch of questions to be determined.
So how many can they bring to this tournament?
Well, so you can, well, how many ever tickets you buy on your airplane and hotel rooms, but you put 16 on your lineup card, and then you would have how many ever players in reserve if you get injuries or you just want fresh legs. And so I know they're going to bring more than 16 players there. It's just a question of what are they thinking? And is there somebody on the bubble where it's like, okay, we might not play him on Saturday, but we might need a fresh pair of legs to go Sunday. And could that be a Joe Wainwright? Sure. Christian Andreas didn't play last weekend. His status to be determined, but there could be some guys who they want to use one game, but not necessarily two.
Yeah, like I said, I'm gonna try to stop by in the morning to see what the health status is. I was not able to get there yet this week. Well, it would have been today. I was
Yeah.
at some other presser for some other team's
Something
coach
else
thing.
happening in Kansas City. Yeah, who thought?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the other person has been interesting, a really late season pickup is Kyle Craig. So
Yeah.
and Craig scored his first goal as a Comet on Sunday. There's another big target, and so they had him in the lineup, Marquez in the lineup, and Reagan in the lineup, which you think that's a little bit interesting set up that way. But there was no Andreas, and so you've got some options there in terms of what are we going to do with pure targets? Do we drop one of our targets back to our midfield? Does one of our targets act as a defensive runner? There's some choices that Coach Stokic has to figure out before Saturday.
Initially, I thought when they picked up Kyle, it was really just to have the extra bodies for these 2 weekends, but he's had some good play in there.
Yeah, and you could put him up with Marquez. And there is no disrespect with this comparison at all, but just in terms of a size thing, it's like the old days of the Comets when you had Jan Goosens and Dale Mitchell. I know people; those are two of the greatest forwards in Kansas City indoor history. If you put two forwards like serious forwards out on the same line together, that creates some problems for the opposing team. And so that's another wrinkle that Stokic has. They scored the first goal. Craig assists to Marquez on Sunday. And so I don't really have any predictions for what the lineup will be. I think that Stokic has shown enough that the Milwaukee coaching crew watching tape, they're not going to know where will they land. They can make some guesses.
Yeah, he has a lot of options now, but some of that is because guys who he would have been counting on has been injured. It's I don't envy his decision making, what he needs to do now. But at least he does have some weapons to combat, the injury. So, yeah.
Yep, he does.
All right. Any last thoughts, words of wisdom?
I think it was a solid regular season. I think they're going to have some regrets on a few things. They're going to regret that game in Milwaukee in December for sure. There's the end of the game at Tacoma where they thought they had tied the game and it was taken away, and they'll regret that. They didn't show up the way they would have liked when San Diego came to town. They didn't deliver when Tacoma came back to Kansas City. There's just going to be a bunch of small things, Thad, where if you add them up, you're like, okay, we're not a fourth place team. We're potentially a second place team. But it's those little moments in aggregate that make the difference at the end of the year. And that's why all these points are important.
I know we can't take out the injuries and all that stuff, but are they a better team this year than they were last year?
Oh, absolutely. There is no doubt. On not only on paper, but when you watch them play, it is a better team. Top to bottom, there's no doubt about that. What I can't predict is who will be the 16 on Saturday, and are they the best players that you can put out there? I think they'll be the best 16 available, but I don't know who's available.
All right. So I'm not going to try to pin you down to that 16 or who will be the starting lineup or any of that kind of stuff. Do they make it to Sunday?
Yes. Yeah.
All
I mean,
right.
I think
we don't need to go further. No, you got it.
You have to think more about it. I know Milwaukee fans are Milwaukee fans, and
do I care?
I think they know what they want to do to beat Milwaukee. I think that they proved that when Milwaukee came to town here. Sure, the game up there, they're going to just want to forget. But in a competitive game, in a competitive environment, I'll take Kansas City's chances any day of the week. If you look at roster to roster, I know that Tyus scored a lot of goals since he came to Milwaukee, but I would take Kansas City's roster.
And the nice thing, too, is that if they do end up facing Chihuahua on Sunday, they know they can beat them now.
They know they can beat them now. There are no guarantees. You can't look past Milwaukee.
Nope.
Milwaukee showed in last year's playoffs that they know how to execute in high-pressure things. They took out Monterey, the undefeated Monterey Flash, and nobody thought that was possible. And so I think this is a team that will be confident coming up against Kansas City, but I think Kansas City will say, look, we know how to beat the Wave. They are our rival, and this one matters just a little bit more.
Appreciate the time, Eric. Enjoy the trip because you'll be out there, right?
No, I'm not. That's why that's why Christian will be announcing with Mr. Bassos. No, I'm going to be in Kansas City, and I had a previous commitment that prevented me from making that trip, but I will be watching along with Comets fans.
I figured you'd find a way to sneak out there at least, even if you weren't going to be doing the announcing.
No, I've done my share. I did the All-Star game. I did the game at Tacoma. Let's spread some joy across the league.
All right. Appreciate the time, and we are out.